Welcome to the Terry Stanley channel. Today, I would like to introduce you to the story, The Son of Chaos. Author, Roman Legacy 6447. Read by, Terry Stanley. Chapter 1, Going Away Party. Percy was walking through the woods of Long Island when he heard a noise behind him. He turned around, sword at the ready until he noticed I was his mother. "Percy, I came to give you your final gifts before you enter camp," his mother said, sounding on the verge of crying. "Thank you, mother, I will use them well," Percy replied. Just then, 13 people flashed in. Percy looked at all of them and smiled warmly, happy to see his whole family came. "Percy, we will each give you a gift to symbolize how much we loved the time you were with us. We hope you will use these to your advantage," one of the men said, walking forwards towards Percy. He was wearing a sea green hoodie and blue jeans. He had black hair and turquoise eyes. "My gift to you is this trident. It can shrink into a wave pendant on your neck when you don't want to use it." Percy thanked Pontus and allowed the next person to step up. He had blonde hair with a tint of whitish blue and wore a sky blue shirt and sweater. "Brother, I have brought you a bow that I have enchanted to turn into a ring for easier carrying. My wife has brought the second part of this gift." A woman walked forward with long brown hair wearing a brown dress with green accents. "Yes, I have given you these special arrows. When you pull back on the string of your bow, it will appear." Percy tested out the bow and arrows and had an amazed look on his face. "Thank you, Uranus and Gaia." He gave them both a hug and they walked back. Next was a man who walked up to Percy. He had greyish skin and purple veins. He was very muscular and his eyes were like a swirling purple vortex. "Percy, I have given you this hunting knife. I know how much you liked hunting monsters in Tartarus for me, so I want you to have it." Percy took the knife and set it on the ground for now. "Thank you, Tartarus," Percy said, appreciating the gift. Another man walked up to Percy. He was very handsome and with no flaws. He walked with a blinding smile and amazing muscles. "Percy, in order to help you find love, not that you will need help, or help others, my gift to you are these vials of love potions. I trust you will not waste these." The man spoke with such an elegant voice. "I will use them as best as I can," Percy replied. "Thank you, Eros." The god of procreation walked back to the group and nudged his brother to go next. The man was handsome but had a dark look to him, like he could make you submit to him with the flick of his wrist. I'm not really the best at goodbyes. I know, ironic for the god of doom. Anyways, I made you this spear. It can instantly kill any monster or non-immortal upon a deadly or fatal wound that would take them hours to bleed out. In order to not have you lug around all this, I enchanted it to shrink into a small flashlight for other emergencies. "Thank you, Mora," Percy said as he put the flashlight in his pocket. Next a woman walked up. She was beautiful with perfectly tanned skin and a white flowing dress. "Percy, I have brought you this backpack, enchanted to never fill up, give you what you need when you think of it," the woman said. Her voice was very warm and inviting. A man walked next to her. He looked like the male version of her, only wearing a chiton instead of a dress. "And I have brought you these jars of Greek fire, enchanted to not explode in the bag," the man said. "Thank you, Ether and Hemera. I know these will come in handy during fights," Percy said as he hugged them. When they walked back, their complete opposites walked forward. They were both pale with black hair and black clothes. When the man spoke, his voice sounded dark and moody. "My wife and I have made you this special armor. It is made of eternal platinum and is indestructible. The helmet is enchanted to reappear in your pack. You lose it or take it off." The armor was pitch black, although when he took it to try on it seemed very light. Smiling at her brother's face, she answered his unasked question. "We also enchanted it to weigh nothing so you wouldn't be weighted down by it." Percy smiled at her and hugged her while saying thanks and shook hands with her husband. "Thank you, Erebus and Nyx. I will miss you too." Next a woman that looked somewhat like Pontus stepped forward. She had black hair and cerulean-colored eyes. She was wearing a sea green dress and was pretty tanned. "Percy, I have brought you a special gift. It was originally mine, but I had the forge workers fix and polish it for you. I want you to remember me by it." As she spoke, Percy remembered all the great times he's had with Thalassa. Although she was a primordial, she was the youngest and was never attracted to the others. Then when Percy came along, she would shrink to his age of 12 and they would constantly flirt with each other. Everyone knew of it, although nobody really minded. They were secretly hoping they would kiss, but it never happened as Thalassa walked away after they shared a hug. Percy put the dagger in its sheath and attached it to his belt. Next up was a man who looked older than time itself. His eyes looked like they have seen everything and been everywhere. He wore brown robes and had a long white beard. "Percy, I came to give you with these. They are cell phones untraceable by monsters. I have 25 of them and they each have each other as a contact that will change names when you give it to someone. I hope you only give them to people you trust, as it could be catastrophic for them to fall into the wrong hands," the man said as Percy put the phones in his bag. "Don't worry, Cronus, I will only give them to people I trust with my life." He gave Cronus a hug and watched as the last person stepped up. He was very tall and looked like the male version of Gaia. He was very muscular and wore brown and green tattered clothes. "Percy, I have got my children to find all of the eternal platinum they could and bring it to the forges. There I told the workers to make the best shield they possibly could. They gave me this." The man held out a shield unlike anything else. It was all black with spikes coming out from the entire outside. On the front there was a planet with all the different primordials symbols. "I've also enchanted it to shrink down into a platinum watch. I hope this will save your life one day." "I'm sure it will, Yuri. Thank you." As Percy hugged and thanked him, his mother stepped forward. "They each have their own partial blessing for you. It was given to you when you received you gifts," his mother said. "What were they?" Percy asked. "From Erebus and Nyx you received the ability to see in the dark and take the light away from any room using the shadows. From Ether and Hemera you have gained the ability to create light to see and became invulnerable to blindness other than seeing a god's true form. From Uri and Gaia you received the ability to lift large boulders and control decent-sized rocks. From Pontus and Thalassa you've gained the ability to breathe underwater and bend any liquid to your own will, as well as create water from the vapor in the air. From Eros you gained the ability to charm speak. From Mori you now can sense when someone close to you is dying or about to die. From Cronus you've gained the ability to slow time or freeze it for a short amount of time. From Tartarus you can now breathe through any types of poison. Uranus gifted you with the ability to control the winds, enabling you to fly. And from me you have whatever abilities you attain through being a son of chaos. Thank you, Mother. I will miss each one of you." Percy was about to leave when his mother stopped him. "You still haven't received my gift yet, Percy. I have created this sword myself. It is made of eternal platinum and is enchanted to turn into a pen and reappear in your pocket." Percy thanked his mother and before leaving asked a serious question. "Who is going to claim me when I get there?" "We have decided that Thalassa would claim you and come to create a cabin for you at camp. Or you could sleep in the Poseidon cabin," his mother answered. "I will talk with the gods when I come to claim you," Thalassa stated. "Thank you, Tal," pronounced Dal as in Talon. The primordials stared as he walked towards the entrance and flashed away with smiles on their faces. Chapter 2, Introductions. Percy Poff. As I walked into camp the fresh smell of strawberries hit my nose. As I walked down a large hill I noticed a large tree with a dragon wrapped around its trunk. Deciding it was better to avoid him for now, I worked my way across the path. I came across a large house with 3 floors painted sky blue. I assumed this was the big house and knocked on the door. It took a couple seconds, but eventually an old centaur opened the door. "Hello, and you are?" the centaur asked while staring at me quizzically. "You must be Chiron." "I'm Percy," I said like it explained everything. "I'm a new demigod, I just got here." "Ah, well come on in then," Chiron said. I followed his lead inside the big house when we reached a ping-pong table full of people. They looked at me weirdly but got up and left once a horn blew from outside. "What was that?" I asked. "The horn signaling dinner," he replied. "I take it since you know me that you know about the gods." I simply just nodded. "Well, let's get off to dinner then," he said, trotting off and out the door. I followed him until we got to something that I assumed was the dining pavilion. "Where do I sit?" I asked him. "All unclaimed demigods sit with the Hermes cabin." I felt kinda bad for the unclaimed demigods, knowing I was about to be claimed on my first day. Just as I finished that thought, Tal flashed in and everyone just stopped and looked at her for a second. After Chiron glared at them, they all proceeded to bow. "Thank you, Chiron, now I request an audience with the Olympian Council," she stated. This was the only time I've seen her in a form older than me, and damn was she hot. "And who might you be?" somebody asked from a distance. "I suggest you watch your tongue, Dionysus. You are speaking to the primordial goddess Thalassa." After hearing this, he immediately got in a bow and started begging for forgiveness. It was at this point the rest of the council flashed in and bowed to Tal. "What may we do for you, Lady Thalassa?" One of the women said. She was well-built and stormy grey eyes with long curly brown hair. "I came here to claim my son Perseus. I assume he will have a cabin built for him. Or shall I tear all of yours apart and use the materials for mine?" Tal said. This mean and stern side of her was not what I liked. I liked her sweetness and care and yeah, sure, her looks, but even I was scared right now. "I can assure you that will not be necessary, my lady. But he can sleep in my cabin as we do not have enough materials at the moment and my cabin accepts all demigods," one of the men said. He had sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. He was wearing a pair of shorts with a brown t-shirt and brown sandals. "I would never leave my son to a fate so cruel. You're lucky the cabin is already made," Tal said as she began to find a nice area for it. She decided to put it on the female side of the U-shaped cabin placement to even the two sides out. As she began to close her eyes, a blinding white light came from the area the cabin was causing everyone to look away except for me, of course. Once she was finished, a cabin larger than the big house stood in its place. The cabin walls were made of aquamite diamonds, a more turquoise and magical version of diamond, with a fountain on either side of the doors. There was a short hedge wall on the left side of the left fountain and vice versa that went around the entire cabin. On the inside there was a single king-sized bed at the back left corner with a large chest in front of it. The doors were made out of sliding glass that would scan your body and could only be accessed by Percy and anyone he sees fit. In the back right was a door that Percy guessed led to the bathroom. In the center there was a diamond sculpture of a hippocampus and Thalassa's sacred animal, the sea creature Zeus-Cud. Zeus-Cud was first created by Pontus as a gift to Thalassa to try to win over her heart. She politely declined him though he allowed her to keep him. Zeus-Cud was a monstrous dragon-like creature with one head the size of a minivan. He was all blue with sea green gems implanted across the bones of his wings. He breathes Greek fire enchanted to burn underwater, allowing him to scorch anything that poses a threat to him. Some legends even say that he is the reason the Megalodon were extinct due to Thalassa telling him to guard all sea life at all costs during the war against the Titans, in which the primordials helped from afar. To the left of when you first enter is a large fountain with a stand beside it containing 3 neat piles of drachmas for iris messaging. To your right is an armor stand and holsters and sheaths where all of my belongings were already set up. I know I had to thank Thalassa for this majestic palace-like cabin. "Thank you, Mom," I said, hoping nobody noticed my slip-up. "Anything for you, Percy," Tal replied. She turned back to the Olympian Council and said one last thing before she flashed out. "If anyone touches Percy at all, I will destroy Olympus brick by brick." She shot a loving smile at me and flashed out, leaving the smell of the sea and fresh lakes lingering behind. "We must have a meeting immediately," an old man said from the front of the council. He had long white hair that flowed down to his short white beard. His eyes crackled with electricity and he spoke in an angered tone. The council flashed out and I decided to go to bed before I was bombarded with questions. I woke up early and decided to walk around and explore camp without the stares and odd looks. As I was passing by the arena I heard the sound of fighting coming from the inside. As I peeked in, I saw a group of 10 demigods training in a bunch of different ways. The first girl looked my age and pretty cute with red hair and emerald green eyes. She was growing vines out of the floor but was struggling to get them to grow higher than a couple feet. Next was a guy with bright blonde hair and brown eyes. He was practicing shooting a dummy from about 20 feet away with a bow but kept just missing the center. Then there was a pair of twins with dirty blonde hair and dark blue eyes who were taking turns running around the arena at lightning speed and trying to pickpocket an automation without being caught. However, they couldn't seem to beat the time on a board they had or beat the automation yet. Just to their right were a group of 4 people practicing different things. One was a buff African American with black hair and hazel eyes working over a forge trying to make a sword but kept on ending up with either a bent tip or a crack in the middle. Beside him a beautiful girl with long blonde hair and light blue eyes who was trying to convince an automation to do different thing but sometimes had to repeat what she was saying. I almost couldn't take my eyes off of her but looked to her right and saw a girl just as beautiful with long brown hair tied into a braid and cerulean colored eyes who was clearly trying to hide her amazing looks but failed. She was sparring against someone else with medium black hair and dark brown eyes. She was using a spear while the former was using a dagger. At the back of the class I saw a girl with curly blonde hair and stormy grey eyes getting dagger lessons from a guy who looked way too old for her with sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. I was just about to leave when a couple of campers walked up to me from behind and began to talk. Already spying on fellow campers. Well, I don't know about you, but here everyone has to know that we can't have some son of an unpopular god be having a better place than us. We here are going to be taking that for ourselves, and you're going to let us in. He had now gathered the attention of the campers inside and any other campers already awake. They had me surrounded and unfortunately I didn't have any of my weapons on me. Although I'm okay with my godly powers, I could only stick to my water ones due to being claimed by Thalassa. The guy directly behind me charged. I managed to duck his sword and made a break for the beach. I know you're wondering why my pen didn't appear in my pocket, but I guess the holsters in my room were enchanted to make them stay. I almost managed to make it to the beach before a son of Hermes, I'm guessing, caught up to me and tripped me. I hit the sand and slid a couple feet before the others caught up. I tried to get up again but somebody kicked the back of my knee and I fell over. Trying to run away, huh? Well, we're not done with you yet. The boy stepped closer and kicked me in the face. I went flying and landed closer to the water, although the kick almost knocked me out. I couldn't do much but I focused on the water as hard as I could before the boy kicked me again. I felt a tug in my gut and looked up as I saw the entire group get launched to the other side of the island, knocked out cold. I was losing consciousness as I faintly saw Chiron and a few other people running towards me. I collapsed into the realm of Morpheus just as they got to me. Chapter 3, Family and Friends. Third person Poff. Chaos was walking through her temple when she passed by her son's room. She stopped when she heard 2 voices talking. Oh come on, I'm way better at drawing than you are. Her son, Percy, exclaimed. Nuh, I can draw ice cut better than you with my eyes closed. She heard a female voice protest. She realized it was her daughter Thalassa. She could tell that the two were flirting. Although Percy was still at the young age of 10, he was still very mature when it came to love. Most likely because he grew up around Eros. Chaos was so lost in thought she didn't even realize that Eros had walked beside her. Flirting as always, huh? Eros knew more about their relationship than anyone but decided not to share it for whatever reason. Same old thing. Chaos replied. She decided to leave the 2 be and walk with Eros for a bit. You know we have to bring him to Camp Half-Blood eventually, right? Eros asked. Chaos knew that Percy had to leave, for if any being, whether it's titans, gods or giants, they would immediately turn to the fates. They had each started making a gift for when his 12th birthday comes and they send him to camp. They agreed to each give him a partial blessing, allowing him one thing from each person. I dread the day it has to happen. Chaos said. We all do, mother. He not just like family. He is family. Eros stated. Although we need someone to claim him when he gets there. We have already agreed that Thalassa will claim him, and his cabin is already being made by the forge workers. He is all prepared for when he needs to leave. Chaos answered with teary eyes as she thought about the danger he will be in. Eros embraced his mother in a hug. He will be fine, mother. He is the strongest out of all of the demigods. He has been training since birth. He will beat anyone, no problem. I hope you're right, Eros. Percy was in his room drawing a picture of Thalassa's pet's ice cud when she walked into his room. You call that a drawing? She said with a playful smile on her face. Oh come on, I'm way better at drawing than you are. Percy shouted. Nah, I can draw ice cud better than you with my eyes closed. Thalassa retorted. That's only because he's your pet. That's just an excuse to not face me. They were so worked up they didn't notice the two gods outside the door. Eventually they settled down with their dispute and went onto the roof to look at the stars. Look, it's Orion and the Scorpion. And there's Ursa Major. Percy pointed at two different constellations in the night sky. Thalassa looked over at Percy and studied him. For a 10-year-old. He was already developing muscles and a six-pack. She was lost in thought when he turned towards her. What is it? He asked. Thalassa got up and helped him to his feet. We've got to go to bed. It's already 1 o'clock. They said their goodbyes and went to their rooms to sleep. Percy jumped up in the temporary cot he was sleeping in the medical tent. He looked around and saw the blonde-haired girl from yesterday. She looked at him before rushing to him and giving a chalice with an sweet-smelling drink. How are you feeling? She asked as he took a sip. Like I just became a god. Percy replied. She giggled at his answer before saying, your show yesterday matched a god. You knocked everyone out cold without even moving. They're still asleep. She gestured to Percy's left where he saw the whole gang from yesterday. Come on, let me show you around. She offered. All right, but, first, what's your name? My name's Silena Beauregard. What's yours? Percy Jackson. Nice to meet you, Percy. Nice to meet you too, Silena. When they walked out of the tent, Percy was amazed at what he saw. There was people shooting perfect bullseyes at the archery range. People climbing up a wall that seemed to have lava pouring down from the top. There were even people playing volleyball in front of the big house. Percy looked over at Silena. He couldn't deny how beautiful she was, and she seemed really sweet. As she showed him around, Percy didn't even realize they were passing by the arena, where the other people were still training. What were you guys doing in there? He asked. Oh, we were practicing for Capture the Flag. We never seemed to win, so we were working on our godly powers and fighting and stuff. Why were you up so early though? There is a schedule throughout the day and none of us have the same classes. So we always wake up early to get some extra practice in. Makes sense, but, what's Capture the Flag? You'll find out tonight. It's a pretty fun game. I'm sure you'll love it. After saying that, she continued the tour. They were on the other side of camp when Silena turned around. I just have one more thing to show you. She led Percy into the woods where, after traveling for a while, they ended up at a large rock formation. This is called Zeus' Fist. It broke off of a statue a while ago. Now it's a popular hangout spot. She began to climb up the rock pile and Percy followed. Once they reached the top, they leant back against a rock-made wall. So do you like camp so far? Yeah, it seems pretty cool. Although I could do without the stairs and odd looks. They treat all new campers like that. They'll get used to you eventually. Just give them time. She looked at Percy and smiled. In Capture the Flag, there's two teams separated by cabin alliances. It's usually Aphrodite, Athena, Ares, and Hermes. We face Apollo, Hephaestus, Dionysus, and Demeter. Be careful because Demeter and Hephaestus create traps with each other. It took me weeks to get the grass stains out of my armor. Also Dionysus kids are the oldest ones here. They're 19 and 2 of the best swordsmen in camp. We'll also be facing a few of our best friends, Will, Michael, and Lee in Apollo's cabin, Charles and Leo in Hephaestus' cabin, and Katie and Miranda in Demeter's cabin. They're the best of their cabins and are some of the best in camp. When she finished explaining, she noticed Percy was staring at her. She blushed but never looked away. Percy leaned forward and their lips connected. They kissed for about a minute until they had to separate. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I gotta go." Percy jumped down from the rock pile of Zeus fist and ran out of the forest. He got back to his cabin and laid on his bed. He stayed there for what seemed like hours until a conch horn sounded. He got up and put his sword in his sheath. He put his backpack on and armored up with his dagger and other weapons. He walked out of his cabin and worked his way towards the sound of the horn. Chapter 4, Capture the Flag. Percy Poff. I made it to the forest entangle and saw every camper standing in front of Chiron, wearing full bronze armor, and wielding an assortment of bronze weapons. I reached the group and was pretty off-put at the many stares I had. It seems that the only weapons in this camp were bright, glowing, bronze, leaving me as the odd one out with dark, shadowy, platinum. After Chiron recovered, he resumed explaining the rules. All magical weapons and powers are allowed, however killing and maiming is strictly against the rules. Anyone caught purposely causing harm will take stable duties for a year, or worse. Prisoners may be disarmed but not bound or gagged. For any campers new to the game, here is how it works. 2 teams will bring their flag to their side of the forest, divided by the creek. The flag must be easily seen and out in the open. Any guards must be at least 10 feet away from the flag unless they are chasing somebody holding it. I will serve as referee. First team to cross the other side with their opponent's flag wins. I began to think about many things, like what team I would be on. If I was with Ares and Hermes, would they force me to be the bait? A lot of other thoughts swirled through my head as I continued to wonder about how I could help and if people would want me to. Luckily Chiron brought me out of my thoughts by talking again. "Who wants to take Percy on their team?" he asked a group of people at the front. I assumed they were the cabin leaders, though I could be wrong. Only Silena raised her hand, causing the others to look shocked, some disgusted. Chiron nodded at her and smiled before he began to talk again. "Very well, off to your positions." I caught up with Silena and thanked her for taking me. "Thank you, Silena, I really appreciate it." She just smiled and nodded before moving up and talking to another girl and guy. We reached a small mound of dirt, and one of the lead boys I recognized from the arena put the flag on top. "Annabeth, battle plan," he stated. After he said that, the girl I saw training with him in the arena stepped up. "Oh right, sorry Luke," Annabeth said, breaking out of her daydream. "So half of the Aphrodite cabin led by Silena will stay back here, along with half of the Hermes cabin, led by Connor and Travis. The other half of Hermes led by Luke will flank the right side, and my cabin will flank left. The other half of Aphrodite, led by Piper, will go straight down the middle as bait, and the Ares cabin will follow behind to charge in and take the flag. If anything goes wrong, I will put on my cap and take the flag to the creek." "What do I do?" I asked, trying to be as polite as possible and not piss off the other 2 cabins on my team. "You can go with Piper," she answered. I saw the girl she was talking about wave to me and I remembered seeing her in the arena. She was the one sparring against the Ares cabin leader Clarice, and boy was she hot, no matter how much she tried not to be. Plus she almost seemed to look better in the armor. We heard a conch horn blow and I walked up to Piper. "So we are just going to be holding off soldiers until the Ares cabin takes the flag?" "Pretty much." "That's stupid." She looked at me with a playful smile. "And why's that?" "Because clearly they keep letting the more war-related cabins get the flag, like Athena, Apollo, Hephaestus, and Ares. Why not do the unexpected and let a lesser respected cabin win?" After I finished, She just looked at me like I said that we should kill all the mortals and take over the world. I'm sorry, that was stupid. No. That was amazing, you're the first person to point it out. Also, how did you know Apollo was getting the flag with Hephaestus? They usually flank around and distract for them. She looked at me curiously. I just assumed they would send half of them for backup. Leave the others on defense, throw Dionysus at mid. It's what I would do. I answered. That, and I saw a few kids with bows out walking off to our left a bit ago. She stayed silent until we reached a creek in the middle of the woods. This is where you have to bring the flag to win. Not that we'll be doing any of that. She sounded bitter, and I couldn't blame her. I would be pissed if I was forced to purposely lose to the enemy for nothing. I wouldn't bet on that. She looked at me shocked before smiling. You're really different, you know that. I just smiled back. We walked for about another 10 minutes until we reached Zeus' Fist. Piper held out her hand to stop us. Nobody move. Her voice now at a whisper. As I was about to ask what's going on, a rain of arrows flew at us. Piper didn't have a shield, so I quickly took mine out of watch form and blocked the arrows for her. Holy shit. You just saved my life. It was nothing, now let's focus. Right, Lucy, you take the cabin and charge at the defense. Be on the lookout for traps. We know Demeter and Hephaestus really like to screw us over with them. What are we doing, Piper? We're going for the flag. Chapter 5, Glory for the Beautiful. Percy POV. After hearing that I almost fainted. I mean, how would campers going here for years feel if a newbie won the game before them? Before I could think too much into it though, Piper started screaming. Yo, planning on helping out Jackson? Or are you just gonna stand there till you get attacked? I'm coming. I rushed towards her and the onslaught began. There was about 25 demigods, and about 10 and a bow and hunting knives. I was assuming that was the Apollo cabin, the remaining 15 were obviously from the Demeter cabin. They each had a weapon in one hand, and had a vine or leaf of some sort in the other to control the plants easier. I saw Lucy, as Piper called her, fighting a majority of the Apollo campers, and a good chunk of Demeter's kids. That left us with just Katie, a girl that looked a lot like her, and 3 of Apollo's kids. The Apollo kid I saw in the arena called out to his brothers. Lee, Michael, you get the new kid. I'll get Piper with Miranda. Katie and the 2 kids, Lee and Michael, began to walk towards me. I saw Piper already engaged in combat with the Apollo kid and the girl Miranda. I turned back to my attackers and smiled. Well, since Katie here is a good friend of mine, I'll go easy. I pulled Riptide out of my pocket, and they seemed confused. I then uncapped it, and they watched in awe as it transformed into a beaming but dark platinum sword. I decided to name it Riptide as a thanks to Dal for claiming me. I decided to just use my shield for now, which I named Boulder as a thanks to Uri, and rushed towards the 3 half-bloods. The Apollo kids pulled out their hunting knives and Katie brought out mid-sized dagger. I figure it would be easy to defeat them, they don't have good range. I slowed down as I got closer, and they began circling me. The one to my left, Lee, tried to slash at me but I blocked with my shield. Before I could attack him, Michael tried to stab at my back. I had to push Lee back and parry his blade. I swung my shield at him, catching him in the chest, and backed off before I got skewered by Katie. I started sparring with her, and she was pretty good with a dagger. But just as I was about to knock her out, Lee came behind me and swung at my head. I blocked but Katie kicked my left knee and I fell to the ground, just as Michael slashed a large gash in my back. For most people, they'd give up now and walk away. Luckily I'm awesome. Before Lee could knock me out with his hilt, I rolled to my left and stood up in a twist/somersault. I then rushed the surprised demigods, and began the real fight. I sent a jab at Katie who just barely sidestepped, and quickly turned to Lee, and swiped at his midsection. He didn't parry hard enough and I ended up grazing his thigh. Michael tried to get behind me but I kicked Lee into a rock, knocking him out cold, and turned to Michael before he could swing. I slashed at his chest and made a nasty cut, then continued the attacks. I pushed him back farther and farther towards Piper, and when we got close enough, I bashed him with my shield to stun him, and kicked him into will. Piper smiled at me and turned her attention towards Miranda. I looked around for Katie, but saw nothing. I decided to help Piper for now, but the surrounding plants started growing higher and higher. They tried to ensnare me, but I slashed at a few, and dived from the others. I saw Katie, on top of a boulder trying to control the grass around me. I ran towards her before she could do anything and was about to attack her when she pulled out another dagger. She jumped off the boulder and tried to cleave my head off, but I rolled to my right and rushed back to her. I jabbed at her right side, but she blocked it with one dagger, and swung at me with the other. I knocked hand with my shield, and she dropped her one dagger, but she was confident. I decided to make this a fair fight and transformed my sword and shield back into a pen and watch respectively. She looked confused when I did that, but I tugged on my Hawaiian bracelet with a Zai-Scud charm on the top, and a dagger formed in my hands. The dagger was a magical platinum, like my other weapons, but this one was different. Instead of being entirely platinum black and dark silver, embedded in the hilt, were small gems and crystals from the depths of the ocean. On the actual grip, there was a blue line swirling down. On the blade, there was a thick streak of sea green making its way to the top, that made another really thin dagger inside the dagger. I don't remember it looking this awesome when I got it, but man, it looks awesome. I turned back towards Katie, who was also in awe of my dagger. We began to clash. Our daggers were a blur of bronze and black. Every time she tried to do something, I blocked it. But any time I tried to retaliate, she blocked me. We went on for what seemed like years, but eventually I saw an opening. She put too much power on her strike and I parried. I used this time to kick her back and knock her out with my dagger. I ran back to the flag and saw Piper there too. I let her grab it, and I would be her backup in case we saw anyone. We were almost at the creek, but Piper looked like she was gonna pass out. I picked her up despite her dreams and carried her over the finish line. When we crossed, the banner began to turn to pink, with a dove in the center. I put Piper down before anyone could see, and I heard a conch horn blowing in the distance. Everyone began to gather around and cheer for Piper and her cabin, who seemed to be enjoying it. All campers to the bonfire, we need to wrap up the day before the harpies come out. Chiron announced. I began to make my way to the camp when a hand grabbed my shoulder. Chapter 7, Weapon Problems. Percy Povey turned to see Annabeth grabbing onto my shoulder, with Luke standing a few feet behind her. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She looked pissed. Her grey eyes looked like there was a storm circling in her brain. "What do you mean?" I was getting mad myself now. "You completely ruined the plan. You were just supposed to distract the defenders while Ares grabbed the flag. We still got it, didn't we? We finished with the campers and Ares wasn't anywhere around. What was I supposed to do, wait till more people came? To be honest, it was a good plan, and it would have worked even if I wasn't there. But there's no way I'm just gonna stand there and wait to be attacked. That doesn't matter. You could have ruined the entire thing. You're lucky Clarice isn't here right now or your ass would be on the ground." Luke began to move forward. "All right, Annie, I think he got the message and won't do this again." He winked at me and pulled Annabeth back. I smiled at him and spoke. "I won't, as long as I'm on the planning team next time." Before she could start screaming again, I started walking back towards camp. It took a while to get back to camp. But on the way I got to think about how proud my family would be for my skills. I wonder what they're doing right now? Third-person POV. The throne room was a mess. There was debris everywhere, thrones were cracked, weapons were laying on the ground. It looked like a war just ended. In the center of the room, Erebus was fighting Uri. They abandoned their swords and were throwing hands. Erebus punched his brother in the face and quickly brought his leg to his side. Uri blocked the kick and uppercut Erebus in the stomach. He tried to hit Erebus with a right hook, but Erebus ducked the punch and tackled him to the ground. Tartarus ended up on top and was about to punch Erebus in the face when a terrified Thalasso appeared with Chaos and Ornos. Ornos pulled out his sword Sonus. You'll see why later in this and in my Percy, Jason, Nico on Olympus story. He walked up to the pair and threw Uri to the other side of the room. When Pontus and Gaia saw him they became relieved. Chaos told the present primordials to take their thrones and summoned the rest of the council. When they got there, they almost had a heart attack. What the fuck happened here? Ether exclaimed. That's what I'm trying to find out. Take your seats. Once everyone was in, Chaos turned to Erebus. Care to explain what happened before I sentence you to exile? Erebus somehow paled even more. We were arguing about Percy. He looked sad. We were watching his capture the flag game since we missed it earlier, and we started arguing about who taught him better. Then that escalated into who is better. And? He looked away. That's it. All of this because you two were insecure about who had the better training. Nyx looked like she was about to explode. I can't believe you two. We all know I had the best training. Pontus, Ornos, and Tartarus exclaimed at the same time. They all laughed at this. The three of them were like Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, but had a closer and friendlier relationship. Kinda like how Poseidon and Hades are, but even stronger. They also were like the brothers in the fact that they had the same domains, and that they were the strongest of the primordials. Before we start arguing again, why don't we take a break for a while? Erebus and Uri are on cleaning duty. They groaned but didn't argue as they got to work. Percy POV. I finally made it back to camp. When I got there I saw most of the people going toward their cabins, so I decided to head to mine. I realized that when I walked through the door, my armor flashed onto the stand. I decided to take a good look at my stuff considering what happened with my dagger. I'll have to ask about that the next time they come. I looked at my armor first. It was completely black but had a shiny kinda glow to it, probably because it was magical platinum. The helmet was just a regular ancient Greek horse plume helmet. It had black hair and silver etched into a cool design going around the helmet. The design just looked like a bunch of lines going around the helmet, but was symmetrical on each side. The chest plate was your average Greek chest plate, but there was a spot in the center, like Iron Man, that would show the symbol of whatever primordial I'm using the power of. There were silver etchings that were extremely small, but showed a pair of crossed sword in front of a shield on each side of the abdomen. The leg plates were from 2 inches above my ankles to the bottom of my knee, but ended in an inverted and dull point, so I wouldn't stab myself on my armor. The design on it was silver and resembled a wolf and a lion's head. The wolf was on all fours, with the lion's head underneath its paws. I decided to look at my weapons now. The Hawaiian bracelet was 2 black strings, with 6 black rectangle beads, about 2 centimeters tall and 1 centimeter wide. On the top there was a very detailed charm of Scud, that was outlined in silver. My watch was a Rolex Titan Black Daytona Avatar. It was black with a bot of dark silver pieces on the chain thing, and had super cool turquoise hands and numbers. If I wanted to turn it into a shield I had to turn the face counterclockwise and it would activate. The shield was the same color as the watch, with the turquoise acting as an outline for the center. In the center of the shield was the symbol of my mother, Chaos. It was a planet that looked like the Earth with a star and moon and sun above it. At the top, there were a pair of pure white angel wings, next to a blinding white crown. On the bottom, there was a set of purple claws, flanked by a black shadow thing, and a black moon. On the left, there was an ocean blue wave, above an ocean blue raindrop. On the right there was a pair of green mountains, above that was a green tree. In between the top and left symbols, was a heart with an arrow through it. In between the top and right was a skull with a sword through it. In between the right and the bottom was a cloud with a lightning bolt through it. Finally, in between the bottom and the left was an hourglass with a staff through it. The rest of my stuff was pretty bland, which surprised me. The ring from Ornos was just gold, and the wave pendant was just a completely blue wave with a gold chain. It was odd that they made them gold, but looking back on it, everything else was gold and boring before I used them, even in weapon form. I'll have to ask about that too. I figured that was weird and heard the conch horn going off. It's weird that it goes off so conveniently. Chapter 8, Another Camp. Percy POV. As I reached the amphitheater, I noticed two new people standing beside Chiron and Mr. D. The first one looked like what mortals pictured a god to look like. He had perfect copper skin, golden hair that flowed perfectly, polished white teeth, and eyes that looked yellow from a distance, but started looking more and more red as I got closer. He had a golden bow slung over his shoulder, but didn't have a quiver. He had two gold daggers sheathed on his waist. He was arguing with the person next to him. The person that was standing next to him looked like the type of girl who got straight A's, but was also the captain of every sports team in high school. She had long dirty blonde hair, and shiny grey eyes. She had a very lean, but muscular body. Her skin was a light olive shade. The bridge of her nose had a faint wrinkle, like she occasionally wore glasses, and she had a spear sheathed on her back. The man wore a white t-shirt, with the words "Shine Always" in gold on the front, and a pair of white Adidas athletic shorts. The woman wore a grey t-shirt that said "Book Nerd" in white on the front, and "Fist Fighter" in white on the back. She wore a pair of tight black booty shorts. I was wondering why they were wearing such little clothes at night, but I understood why once I got closer to the fire. The flames were hotter than some of the girls I've seen Eros with. I sat down on the end of the stands closest to where I came from and took off my ocean blue hoodie, wearing only my black pony, the male athletic company, shorts, and my sea green t-shirt. As the last few campers entered the amphitheater, most of them kept their distance. I was kinda isolated in my own corner of the place. Before I could think much about it, I noticed Katie waving me over to her and her friends. I was about to say no thanks, but I saw Piper and Silena waving me over as well. I reluctantly walked over to where they were and sat beside the only open spot. Right in between Katie and Silena, with Piper right in front of Katie. In front of me and Silena were the Stoll brothers. Behind me was Clarice, flanked by Will and Luke. Beside Luke was Annabeth, and beside Will was Lee. In front of Annabeth/beside Katie was Charles, and beside Silena/in front of Lee was Michael. As I sat down, Michael noticed me. "Dude. You were awesome today. Where the hell did you learn to fight like that?" "I know, right? And where'd you get those weapons? Not many people have a magical weapon here, let alone like every weapon to exist." Travis said from in front of me. "You should ask Chiron to make you a class teacher." Katie said. "I don't know. It's only my first week, and I only took down 3 demigods. I don't think that makes me teacher worthy. Plus, I had a lot of help from Piper." "Oh please. I basically just distracted somebody for you, and then let you take care of them after." I was beginning to feel overwhelmed as I tried to think my way out of it. Then I saw Luke. He looked pretty upset about me taking over his class. No. I wouldn't want to take that position from someone who's been here a lot longer than me. I may know how to fight, but Luke is a much better teacher than I am. I'd probably end up slashing off my own hand trying to demonstrate. That response seemed to take him by surprise, but he quickly regained his composure. "If you really don't want to teach, I could always use a helper. It's a win-win. You teach without taking someone's position, and you get to knock around Connor and Travis." That brought laughter from everyone, and protests from the 2 brothers. "So what do you say?" "All right. On one condition." He nodded as to say to continue. "I get to tag in when the Stolls are doing their training." Now even the Stolls were laughing, though they didn't look sure if I was joking or not. I was about to ask them something, but I was interrupted by Chiron. "Attention campers. As you know, Olympus has been quiet ever since the winter solstice meeting. Beside me are Lord Apollo and Lady Athena to explain what the situation is like." He stepped back as the 2 Olympians stepped forwards. Apollo spoke first. "Good evening campers. Although I would rather be here for a singing competition, I bring bad news. Lord Zeus has had his master bolt stolen. Before he could continue, all of the campers began to murmur. Silence. Chiron stomped his foot and brought our attention back. This time Athena spoke. We understand this sounds impossible, but it has happened. After she finished she looked at us. Yes, Annabeth. Why are you telling us this, my lady? Lady Athena seemed to tense up when Annabeth said that. Please my dear, just Mom is fine. But we are here because the council has decided to reward a quest to someone. But before we told you who it was, we wanted to ask for the campers' opinion. Does anyone have any suggestions? At first, nobody said anything, but suddenly everyone around me started standing up. I was surprised and stood up with them. Oh. Are we all? Thanks for the warning. I said. We nominate Percy as the quest leader. Katie announced. I think I'm a go back down. But before I could sit down, the riots began. He can't lead the quest. He's not even the son of an Olympian. He could be a traitor. We don't know him. He's too weak, he'd die on the first day. I expected Chiron, or the gods to stop the screaming, but when I looked up, they were just discussing with each other. After another 45 seconds of screaming, Apollo stepped forward. He blinded us with the brightest sun ray I've ever seen, which seemed impossible due to it being night time. Luckily I'm immune to it, so I saw it was coming from his body. He looked confused when he saw me but didn't say anything as he got straight to the point. Does anyone have any real objections other than they don't trust him or think he's too weak? Most campers looked like they wanted to say something, but nobody could think of anything. Now we have decided to host a special council meeting with all cabin councillors in attendance. I will give everyone 30 minutes to go back to their cabins and tell the things they want brought up at the meeting. Time starts now. Everyone hustled towards the cabins to prepare for the meeting. It could be the end of the god's reign if this quest failed. I made my way out of my cabin and began towards the big house. None of the councillors were there yet, which wasn't surprising considering we still have 7 minutes till we have to go. Chiron was just standing there with the 3 Olympians. I just spent most of the time in my cabin trying to contact Tal or my mom, but the phones that Cronus gave me just kept going to voicemail. Iris messaging was out of the question, as she can't be knowing about our secrets. Although I did contemplate it a few times. My only current option is to chill with the immortals, I guess. As I neared, I studies their faces. Mr. D was easy to read, he was bored and didn't care at all. Chiron looked worried, but also confident in us. Apollo was beaming at me like I was his favorite son, and Athena looked weary, but excited. What was really strange was they didn't seem to notice me. Seeing as we still had a small wait ahead of us, I decided to make small talk as I sat on a porch chair. Some nice weather we're having. Immediately all 4 heads snapped in my direction. We have the same weather every day, Parker. It amazed me that he could disrespect and mistreat the campers so much and get away with it. Sorry. I just figured if make small talk since we've still got 6 minutes until they get here. Nobody spoke after I said that. How did Zeus lose his bolt? That is none of your business. This is an Olympian matter. Athena snapped. Well, isn't it like, only my business? I was the only one volunteered to go. You two didn't mention anyone else either. I can only assume the council decided I would be the one leading this quest. Chiron looked shocked that I would talk back to a god like that. Apollo and Mr. D just looked amused. I mean, he does have a point, Athena. Apollo backed me up. I was starting to like him. You'll find out when we get to Olympus. We waited for another few minutes in silence until the other counselors started walking towards us. They finally made their way to us and Apollo broke the silence. All right everyone. Who's ready to go to Olympus? Nobody answered, but he didn't seem that concerned. All right, hold hands and close your eyes. I moved towards the group and held hands with the person closest to me, who was Silena. As soon as we made contact, she blushed and we turned our heads away. But before anyone could notice, we flashed away. Even though I could see, I closed my eyes on instinct, which sucker cause I really wanted to see what that looked like. We've arrived, you can now open your eyes. Come on. We shouldn't waste any time. Athena ushered. As we made our way through the city, I couldn't help but be amazed. I mean, yeah, my mom's realm was way cooler, and way more beautiful, it still looked pretty good. I realized me and Silena were still holding hands, and quickly let go. Due to the walk taking a while, I decided to reflect on my feelings. I definitely liked Tal. But I don't think we'll be able to do anything with her having to pretend to be my mom, and me being stuck at camp. Then there was the three girls here. Katie, Silena, and Piper. They each appealed to different sides of me. Piper appealed more to my fighter side. I mean, sure the other two could fight, but she was more skilled with a dagger than most people I've seen. Silena appealed more to my hormonal since she was quote-unquote, hot. Katie and Piper were beautiful too, but Silena just has that aura. Last but not least, Katie appealed to my more chill/friendly/smart side. Once again, the other two were this as well, but she was just so nice and innocent. She sure knew how grow her plants too. If I wasn't about to go on a deadly quest, I'd make a joke about how they all have amazing growing powers, if you know what I mean. I was brought out of my thoughts when Katie shook me. Earth to Percy. Huh? You were zoned out the entire walk. I wanted to wake you up before we got to the throne room. Oh. Thanks, Katie. I owe you one. Well, you can cancel that by taking me with you. She whispered in an almost seductive voice. I was hoping she was joking, but was also glad she wanted to come. I decided to save those thoughts until I was sure I got the quest. No point on overthinking things that might not even happen. As we entered through the doors, I almost burst out laughing. This throne room was nothing compared to the one back at my mom's. Luckily I held it in as Zeus started speaking. Demigods. We have brought you here today to award one of you a quest. The council has nominated somebody here to lead the quest, but first we would to hear if there is any more volunteers. Silence once again. Well then, it seems the potion of quest leader shall go to Perseus Jackson. Poseidon announced. I realized he probably saw me as an equal, due to him thinking I was the son of the primordial of the seas. He's not as arrogant as his brothers, which I liked. He would be the one to admit when someone bests him. Perseus, this is a dangerous quest you'll be embarking on. Since we do not know what the outcome of the quest, we will allow you to take 4 partners rather than 2. Hera exclaimed. My mind immediately went to Piper, Silena, and Katie. But I didn't know who I wanted to be the 5th member. Do I have any time to think about my choices? I asked. I didn't want to bring someone that didn't want to come, so I talk it out with my options. We will give you until breakfast tomorrow. You will be leaving at lunch. But that isn't the only reason we are here. We believe that a demigod was the one that stole Zeus' bolt. But we do not believe it was someone from this camp. Demeter said carefully. How is that possible, m'lady? What other camps are there? Annabeth asked. We assumed you would ask that. Unfortunately we cannot give all of you that information. We will first let Percy choose his partners, then we will award them with that information. We will be forced to remove the memories of the counselors not involved in the quest. Apollo said with a sad smile. Now we need all of you to swear on the sticks you will not tell anyone at camp about what happened here unless given permission by the council. Aphrodite said. Things must be really tense if she was speaking for the council. We all hesitantly spoke out oaths and were quickly flashed away. We ended up back in front of the big house, everyone looking at me. Look, just, give me tonight to think about it. I'll ask everyone about it tomorrow at breakfast. But everyone get sleep and get prepared. If I do choose you, it will be dangerous. They're obviously scared. We need to prove we can pull our own weight around here. With those words, everyone seemed more confident. They quickly hurried off to bed as I hurried off to mine. When I entered I saw somebody in an all-black chiton with their back turned to me looking at my armor stand. Look who finally decided to show up. Chapter 9, Sonus. Mom? What are you doing here? What? I can't visit my son before he goes off on his first life-threatening quest. It's every mother's dream to send their son off to save the world. Clearly nobody has kids in your book club. It felt good to be able to joke around with my mother like this. It brings back the good old days on Isolite. I wish I didn't have to leave, but my mom said I had to be the one to save the Olympians. That only I could provide judgment, and if need be, execution. I didn't like it. I felt like I was only being raised to fight, and that's it. But then she breaks ancient laws by letting me train with the primordials, and treated me like one of them. That's how I knew she truly loved me. Anyways, I'm here for a couple things. The first is to answer your questions about your weapons. The reason you still have a gold ring and pendant is because you need to truly bind with that weapon in order to unlock its full potential. The reason your dagger binded with you is because of your connection with Tal. Hence the jewels and blue lines. Your shield bonded with you because of the bonds you have made at camp. You have already made friendships so strong, the shield recognized the amount of protection you would need to defend them as well. Anaklasmos has changed because of your strength. Even before you came here, you were trained by the best primordial fighters alive. Your hunting knife developed a bond through your skill over your powers. You have managed to learn how to control some of your powers within a few days. Most children of Poseidon couldn't even do that already. What about my other weapons? My spear, my trident, and my bow. Even my flashlight is plain gold. I do not have the answer to that. You need to better yourself on this quest and maybe you will master your last remaining weapons. I wanted to get off of the subject of me being too weak to use my weapons properly. What are the other reasons you're here? I tried not to show my anger, and probably failed. I'm here to help you decide who to take on your quest. I know you want to bring the 3 girls that seem to have, attracted your attention. But don't let your emotions blind you. This quest has no room for failure. Tonight we will go through your friends and see who is most fitted, then at breakfast tomorrow you will talk to them each separately and make sure they are okay with your choices. Thank you, Mom. I'm sorry for trying to use this as an opportunity to sort my feelings. That's what talks with Eros are for. She let out a small chuckle. There's actually one more reason I'm here. She clapped her hands twice and I saw Tartarus, Ornos, and Pontus emerge from the bathroom. Whoa. I knew you guys were close but... Oh, shut up, Percy. There's not many other places to hide in this cabin. Tartarus said defensively. You know. Now I might not even give you our gift. Pontus exclaimed. Really? What a baby. I responded. You're not making it any better for yourself right now, brother. Ornos stated. Fine. I'm sorry I made fun of you. I said lazily. I'm not sure if I accept that. I want you to mean it. Pontus said. Just tell me what the god's damn gift is. Okay. Okay. Here Tartarus said. They each drew their sword, all named Sonus for some reason. Percy. As you know, each of us have a sword named Sonus. But we never told you why. Today we will explain the origins of its name, the power it possesses, and the power that you possess. Ornos began. But I was confused. Why are you saying it? There's very clearly 3 different swords. That's where you're wrong, little brother. You see, before my grandsons, or even my sons ruled Earth, the primordials used it as a sort of sandbox. There were thousands of different primordials venturing the land, creating what they wanted. It was fun and peaceful. But one day, we got carried away. Ornos explained. Before I could ask anything, Tartarus continued. We realized that combined, we essentially had control over the entire planet. When we teamed up with 2 of us, we could create some of the most powerful storms. We thought that if we combined our efforts, we could do anything. And we were right. We won't go into detail now, you're too young to know what it does. But we went too far, and nearly destroyed Earth. The planet was in ruins. Any primordials that wasn't first generation like us, or the ones that you grew up with, was killed. We had created a new natural disaster, only able to be formed by a connection of the sky, the sea and land, and the underground. Luckily the big three, or at least Zeus, despises his brothers too much to unleash this deadly ability. Realizing what we had done, we knew we had to lock away this power in fear of it falling into the wrong hands, even if it is after we fade. We took to the forges, and created identical swords that held the power of our creation inside, corresponding to the welder and their contribution. Once he finished, they held out their swords. They all had the same blade, hilt, guard, and exoskeleton. But they each had different designs. The sword that Tartarus held had a crimson-red hilt, with a completely black blade. On the hilt, black circles found their way down the grip. At the bottom of the blade, was a crimson-red part coming from the hilt, like Riptide in the movies, and had a black flame on it. 3 red lines traced up the blade parallel to each other. The other 2 blades had the exact same designs, but Pontus had a blue diamond blade and accents with a sea green hilt, and a diamond wave instead of a black flame. While Orna's had a gold blade and accents with a white hilt, and a gold lightning bolt instead of the flame. We realize this is a lot of information. We basically just told you that we killed most of our race, and created a natural disaster so powerful it could destroy the planet. But we're not done. We realized that we could not keep this power hidden forever. We obviously created it for a reason. We created these swords with the intent of showing their true potential as well. But first we need to bring you home. Just as Pontus said that, my mother stood up and snapped. When I opened my eyes, we were in the throne room on Nicolite. My brothers summoned a throne for me in the center of the room, and I took the seat. We created these swords to combine, should we ever need to pass down our knowledge of this. But it's too dangerous to do on Earth. And we need Mother to perform the actions. Pontus finished. My mother stood up as my brothers held their swords out. As she spoke the language of the primordials, the swords began floating towards her. A bright black glow surrounded each blade. They moved closer together, and when they touched, they released a light so bright, I had to close my eyes even with Ether's blessing. When the light died down, I looked back at my mom. In her hand she held the most badass sword I've ever seen. It had the same 3-foot leaf blade as most swords I've seen, but it had a blue diamond blade. The hilt was completely black. It had pure white circles traveling across the grip, and a black thing coming off the hilt and onto the blade. On this, let's call it a glove, was a white design that had crossed swords, but instead of swords, it was a lightning bolt and a trident. They were crosses through the same designed claws that were on my shield, and that was directly above a white cloud. Under the cloud was a white wave, which was over a white flame. It was their symbols of power above their realms. It looked so cool, but I was scared of why they did this. Percy, we have done this because you are more than just my child. You, somewhat like Aphrodite, were created from the sea. After I heard about the great prophecy, I knew I had to create you. I knew Zeus would break the pact, and I knew that Hades had 2 children that he hid in the Lotus Casino. I knew since Poseidon wouldn't break the pact, I had to have the power of the sea at play in this war. After Zeus had sired his 2nd child, I decided it was time to start. I went to Montauk, where I stayed in a cabin for a week while I formed you. With help from Pontus, we created a human that would have the same powers as a son of Poseidon, and added my essence to make you my child. Luckily you were formed before Zeus' 2nd child could actually be born, and I made sure to take care of the daughter of Zeus without killing her. Now you are next in line for the prophecy, and you need all of the help you can get. That is why we are gifting you with Sonus. There will come a time when this needs to be separated again, but they will go to you and the friends that you gift them to. Luckily that day won't come for a while, giving you, and your friends enough time to fully control your powers, as to not destroy Earth. I think I just sat there for at least an hour before I could speak. So, I have the power to destroy the earth in my hands? Yes and no. All this sword does is enhance your powers over your domain. You basically have the powers of a son of Pontus. You need to team up with people with powers over the sky and the underearth. Tartarus answered. I couldn't think of how to respond. I just found out I was created from the sea in order to bring balance to the world. It was a lot of pressure. Thank you. I'll try not to kill everyone with this. Just as I was hoping, they chuckled. You must go now. You have a long night with Mom ahead. Pontus replied. Right. Come Percy. We only have another hour until you have to sleep. Also, here. She threw the sword towards me, but it shrank into a pen as it reached my hands. Really? Another pen? Real creative. Hey. There's not many other thing that makes sense to carry around everywhere. Relax. I'm kidding. Now hurry up, I want to be able to sleep tonight. I woke up to the sound of my alarm clock made by Hemera. Wake the fuck up Percy. Wake the fuck up Percy. Man, I loved hearing my mom yell at me to wake the fuck up every morning. Stupid voice recording. Luckily my cabin was soundproof. I stood up and showered. I got dressed into my regular camp t-shirt, and blue Nike shorts. I made my way to the dining pavilion to meet my friends like I said I would. I saw all of them waiting at the table my mother made for me. It was twice the size of the other tables, meaning it could fit all of us, with at least one person's space in between us all. I noticed the people that were missing last night were here too. We had 21 people in total, namely, me, Luke, Chris, Travis, Connor, Annabeth, Malcolm, Silena, Piper, Katie, Miranda, Will, Lee, Michael, Pollux, Caster, Clarice, Sherman, Charles, Jake, and Nissa. But only 5 of us would be going. I decided to start off with a little speech to make sure the people I didn't choose weren't upset with my decision. They all stared at me as I sat at the head of the table. All right. I just want to start off by saying to not take it so hard if I don't choose you. My mother and I stayed up for 3 hours coming up with hundreds of different scenarios, and who would be best in each. We tested things like strategy, skill, power control, fighting, and the most important factor, chemistry. I can't take people that don't even know each other's fighting styles. But my mom told me something else last night. This is just the beginning of a much bigger threat. There will come a day when we all need to fight together, along with the rest of camp. We need to be the leaders no matter the situation. I'm hoping everyone here will understand that these choices are not anything personal. They're just the best team for most of the situations. It was a hard decision and everyone came close. Just please don't get mad if you're not on here. I know I'm rambling and repeating myself, but I'm just so nervous about their response. I think we can all agree to your terms. Right guys? Luke said, looking at the rest. Of course. We know that this could be life or death, we get that this decision isn't just impulse. Surprisingly, it was Connor who replied. Thank you. Sigh. I've decided to take Luke, Annabeth, Clarice, and Charles. They looked shocked, as did everyone else. But I'm sure they'd have the same reaction to anyone I chose. I made sure to retain eye contact with Luke or my plate, not daring to see the reaction on Silena, Piper, or Katie's face. I know some of you are upset, but remember what I said. This is part of something bigger, and we all have a part in when that comes around. Now go enjoy breakfast. We only have a couple hours until the council sees us again. I leaned to take a bite from my food, but my friends were just staring at me. We're not leaving Percy. Whether we like the decision or not, it's final. We can't change it and that's okay. We're a family, and you're a part of it now. Pollux and Caster took turns saying. I was almost on the verge of tears. I've only been here a few days, and I'm already a part of their family. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. We spent the rest of breakfast just chatting like normal teens. We played MFK, Would You Rather, Truth or Dare. But we couldn't do that many dares right now. Without going into too much detail, We had to get Silena and Piper to both charm speak Clarice to not kill the Stoles after an awkward MFK question. I was trying to help with my charm speak, but I'm not sure if I actually did anything. Decided that now was a better time than ever for this. Guys, I want to give you all something. Follow me. They looked confused but followed. We reached my cabin and they stood back. What are you guys doing? Come on. Percy, it's disrespectful to enter another god's cabin. Katie said. Relax. My mom said you were allowed. Actually, only you guys are. The door only opens to me and those I allow. Now I'm letting you guys enter. We spent the next 30 minutes getting them put into the database of the cabin. There was a lot of blood when Katie went up. It took me a while to convince her it wouldn't hurt. Unfortunately she moved when the needle hit and it cut her bad. Luckily I had the ambrosia my siblings gave me. After that was cleaned up and dealt with, I decided to pull out the big gun. Why do you have a baggie full of iPhone X's? Nissa asked. You know we can't use phones, Percy. Monsters track the signals. Jake continued. I know. But these are special. My mom got one of her friends to enchant these. They're iPhone X's that are untraceable by monsters. She told me to only give them to people I trust. So I'm giving one to each of you. Dude. What don't you have? Travis said. Oh man. We have to set each other up as contacts in all of these phones. Sherman complained. Nope. They already have each other. They change the names to whoever owns them. So jealous right now. Piper said. After we spent the next hour and a half downloading games, apps, and setting up a Snapchat group chat with all of us in it, we heard the dinner horn. Alright. The 5 going on the quest suit up. It's time. Luke said. Everybody else made their way to the dining hall. I could only hope we'd succeed on this quest. I put those thoughts to the side as I got ready. It's time to introduce Sonus to the world. I made my way to the dining pavilion, where my quest members were waiting with Chiron. I decided to wear my armor. But my mom enchanted to just turn into regular clothes when I wasn't wearing them. I was wearing a regular camp t-shirt, but over it I had a plain pure white pullover hoodie. I decided to wear it since it wasn't too hot outside. I rolled up the sleeves, and made my leg plates change into Vanti black. Look it up. It's cool, shorts. I had riptide in my left pocket, and Sonus in my right. My hunting knife, which I named Udrix, Dr. 9, was sheathed on my left hip. This name came from the ancient primordial language. It was a very complex language, so my family only taught me basics and what related to their powers. I named it this because it roughly translated to Slayer in English. My flashlight was enchanted to stay in my hood until I reached in with the intent of pulling it out, and I wore my Hawaiian bracelet on my right wrist. I decided to name my dagger Foamite. My watch was strapped onto my left wrist. I kept my ring on my left middle finger, but decided to leave my pendant in my bag. It's not that I didn't like it, I just figured with the whole black and white thing I have going on. The only reason my ring wasn't in there was because I feel like it would be good to at least have some long-range cover. Although Charles had that covered, we could always use a backup. Thinking about it, we had everything. We had a Clarice with a spear, and she was the fighter. We had Annabeth with the dagger, and she was the brains. The sword was covered by Luke, and he covered experience. Charles was our archer since he was the best other than the Apollo kids. He could even light some arrows on fire, but that took a lot of concentration. He also took part as the builder/traps man. I was pretty much all of that in one. I'm not trying to brag, but I was trained by more than just demigods that haven't even been in the real world. I was trained by the oldest beings to exist. I turned the corner past the cabins and was intrigued at what I saw. The other campers weren't at their activities, and were waiting to say goodbye to us. I saw everyone I told the details of the quest to, chilling with Chiron at the front of the hall. My quest members were all dressed up, but of course nobody looked as badass as me. They all wore a camp shirt, and blue shorts you can get from the store. Luke had his sword, backbiter, sheathed on his left hip, while a dagger was sheathed on his right. Annabeth had her dagger sheathed on her left hip, and had her Yankees cap tucked into her belt on her right. Charles had his bow and quiver slung over his left shoulder, and had a small throwing/battle axe sheathed on his right hip. Clarice wore her spear on her back, although it shrunk into a medium-sized staff while sheathed. She also had 2 hunting knives sheathed on either side of her, in case she need to ditch the spear. "Where do you get all of these clothes, Percy? You didn't exactly come with any luggage," Silena complained. She looked cute when she was mad. "Come on, man. I can't think like that right now. Well, this is my armor. It can change into what I want. But my dresser is enchanted to give me whatever clothes I want. Dude. You have to write a list when you're on the quest. It's getting hard to keep up with everything you have. Come on, Connor. I told you guys you're welcome into my cabin whenever you want. Be sure to take advantage of the game room too." The Stoles' heads nearly exploded when I said there was a game room. Seriously? Screw you guys, I'm going to play Fortnite. We all laughed at that. We had to. Some of us, maybe all of us, might not come back from this. Hey, what are the other campers doing here anyway? Isn't this like a secret quest? Hiram answered my question. Yes and no. They do know that you're going on a quest, but they do not know the information. They came to see you off before you leave. Now eat quick. The gods should be here soon. I was about to go to my table with my friends, but we were stopped on the way there. Lady Athena attempted to flash a couple feet in front of us, thinking we'd be blinded by the light and stop, but with my blessing from Ether I didn't even notice she was flashing in until I was walked into her private parts, knocking both of us to the ground. She was wearing the same clothes as yesterday, so it was pretty embarrassing when I ended up on the ground, with Annabeth and Malcolm's mom on top of me in very revealing clothes. She quickly stood up and I backed away, muttering as many apologies as I could think of. "Oh my god, milady, I didn't mean to, please forgive me, it was an accident. I promise I never do it again, please milady, I hope you can accept my apology." I rambled out in one big word. She looked pissed but surprisingly didn't vaporize me on the spot. "Relax, boy. I will not kill you, yet. I'm more concerned with how you could see through the light." Her expression changed so quickly, I figured if Annabeth ever got pissed at me, I could just get her thinking random stuff. "Well, I'll have to tell you later. This is not the right place." I began sweating. Luckily she either didn't notice, or didn't care enough to torture the answer out of me. "You sure as Hades will. I came here to tell you that the council is ready to see you. I see you have made a decision on who you are taking," she said, gesturing to my questmates that were all dressed up. "Yes, I have, m'lady. We're ready to see the council." "Very well. Let's be on our way." I looked back at my friends. Not a good idea. As soon as I turned around, the Stoles burst out laughing. Annabeth and Malcolm looked like they wanted to kill me. The others were just smiling or chuckling, but I was more focused on the fact that Annabeth might assassinate me during the quest. "Now get ready. We're flashing to Olympus." This time I made sure to keep my eyes open. The sight was beautiful, and definitely not what you'd expect. Rather than just everything turning white, the land around me actually morphed into Olympus. It started from where we were standing, where a marble floor started stretching out, and expanded further outwards. I saw the head dining table change into Dionysus' throne, the cabins change into the hearth in the center of the room. The thing I found funniest though, was seeing the other campers get turned into the muses and minor gods dancing around Olympus. I decided to stop looking around in awe, just in case any other gods noticed. It wasn't the time to reveal who I was yet. I don't know when I should, but not now. When the rest of the terrain was changed, Athena left to go take her seat. "Perseus, we see you have let a few others know of this quest." Zeus sounded angry. I was not looking forward to talking right now. "Yes. I got the best campers I knew, and asked Athena if I could inform them of what is going on." "Very well. Have you decided who is coming with you? Poseidon interrupted his brother from vaporizing me. Thank gods he did. Zeus looks like he could blow up the entirety of Texas with a look. I have my lord. I have chosen Annabeth, Luke, Clarice, and Charles. The parents of those I mentioned had mixed emotions. They all looked proud, but at the same time had looks of worry and nervousness. Very well. Would those people stand to side? You too, Perseus? Hera asked. I decided I should listen to her, and moved to beside Mr. D's throne. Hermes, go bring us Hecate. Sure thing, Mom. He flashed out, and flashed back almost instantly. I was summoned, my lady. Yes. I need you to wipe the memories from the past 24 hours of these demigods. She gestured towards my friends still standing at the end of the U. After, I need you to alter them as I see fit. I felt bad. I dragged my friends into this, didn't bring them, and now they won't even remember why they're mad at me. Hecate nodded and Hera gave her a piece of paper. Take this paper. I expect you to meet every requirement. Hecate took the paper and nodded. She walked towards my friends and flashed away with them. Now for you 5. Do you have any questions about your quest? Wait, what? That's it. They won't even tell us what to do. I was about to reply when Clarice spoke up. Yeah, what the hell are we doing? We don't know where we're going, who we're facing, how long it should take. Care to actually tell us stuff before we probably die for you? She looked scared, an emotion I was told rarely seen on her. Right. We can't answer those questions until we have heard the prophecy. This quest will have many questions surrounding it. Unfortunately we won't be able to answer them for some time. Apollo apologized. We haven't even gotten a prophecy yet. Nobody was sent to the oracle. Luke spoke up. He looked angry and shaken. Like he had a troubled past with the oracle. That's where Apollo comes in. The oracle at camp only responds when a quest is needed by the fates. For Olympian quests, Apollo needs to contact the oracle directly. Artemis explained. I've never heard of her talking to guys and not killing them, but all of the stories I heard were from years ago. I lost my train of thought when I heard Poseidon speak my name. Perseus must be alone with him at the time. Only the quest leader can witness the ritual. He looked at me wearily, like I might attack him. How much of the convo did I miss? We will answer the questions you had after we hear the prophecy. For now Perseus must go to Apollo's temple.